Is it a good idea to pair the RTX 4080 Super with a mainstream CPU like the Ryzen 5 7600X to play the latest games at 4K resolution? Well, let's see how different the experiences will be, because over here I have the Ryzen 5 7600X PC build, and on the right here I have the i7 14700KF PC build. There is no need to spend that much money on Windows 11 Pro when you can get it for much cheaper at cdkeyoffer.com. Additionally, use discount code IVADIM to get 25% off and bring the total price down to $22. Furthermore, you can find Windows 10 Pro as well as Microsoft Office at much cheaper prices as well. Get yours now at the link in the description below, and don't forget to use discount code IVADIM to get 25% off. Let's start with Horizon Forbidden West, because this is your average AAA game in 2024. It is not extremely CPU demanding, nor is it extremely GPU demanding. It's just average. And we are at 4K resolution, no upscaling, no frame generation, and graphics settings are maxed out. In this scene, inside of one of the towns in this game, we can still get 60 FPS. However, take note of that GPU load. It is nowhere near 99 or 100%. That means that basically we are leaving some performance on the table. And that is despite the fact that the CPU is not 100% loaded, it's just hovering between 50 to 60% load. That just shows that the CPU doesn't have to be 100% loaded to not be able to keep up with your GPU in some cases. And even this game has a CPU intensive area, which is this one here, with lots of NPCs inside of the tavern, and we're dropping below 60 FPS already. So that is not a good sign if you are after a consistent 60 FPS experience. And that is not even touching the subject of 1% lows, because if 1% lows are well below 60 FPS, then you will not have a smooth experience on your monitor. You will be looking at an image that is not that smooth. Now let's enable DLSS quality, which is a very reasonable thing to do, despite the fact that this is a very powerful GPU. Using DLSS is still pretty good, because DLSS set to quality on a 4K monitor looks exactly the same as native resolution, but you get more FPS and the image looks as good as native, so it's a win-win. And in this situation, as you can see, the FPS is higher, so that's good. And our 1% lows are higher as well, and I can actually feel it looking at the monitor. The image is much smoother, much more pleasant. So in this particular game, you can kind of bypass that limitation of the 7600X CPU and, you know, get a much higher FPS thanks to DLSS and still have a good time. If you are a purist, if you don't want to use any resolution upscaling in your games, then you do need a more powerful CPU to keep up with your demands. Now let's see how the Ryzen 5 7600X CPU and RTX 4080 Super GPU combo behaves in an extremely GPU demanding game such as Hellblade 2. And in an average scene, you can see that we are getting well above 60 FPS. However, we do have to use DLSS set to quality in this game, because check this out. Even using the RTX 4080 Super, if we disable resolution upscaling and just use native resolution and the highest graphics quality preset, even in this scene, which is not the worst case scenario at all, we are getting below 60 FPS, well, closer to 50 actually. So it's a good idea to use DLSS set to quality mode, which looks absolutely great in this game. No issues with DLSS in this particular title or any other recent games that I can think of as well, because DLSS is just that good nowadays. But take a look at that GPU load. It does stay close to 99, which is good. However, from time to time it does drop to 97, 96. So that is not ideal. This is one of the worst case scenarios I was talking about, and yeah, we are getting below 50 FPS right now, 47. And even in older games, such as Cyberpunk 2077, using Ultra Graphics preset with DLSS set to quality at 4K resolution, the FPS is below 60. Now let's see if we can get a better experience using the i7-14700KF system. In terms of specifications, this system is very similar to the Ryzen PC we used previously, because both use DDR5 6000 memory. We are back in Horizon Forbidden West, using the i7 this time. And same graphics settings, 4K resolution native. That means no upscaling, no frame generation. And right from the start we can see a massive difference. The FPS is at well above 60, and even 1% lows are staying close to 60. Take a look at that, 57, 53, 54. This is a much nicer experience at native resolution than we had with the 6-core Ryzen 5 7600X. And take a look at that GPU load. It stays at 100% to 99%, which basically means that it is fully loaded. That is what we want to see in a well-balanced PC build. And even in this location where the Ryzen 5 7600X failed to deliver a good experience, we are staying at above 60 FPS with the i7. By the way, I am not saying that you must have an Intel CPU. You can get a good 8-core Ryzen CPU and still get the same or even better experience. Now let's check what happens if we enable DLSS set to quality. Yeah, good experience as well. Well above 90 FPS, even in this scene right here. And frame time as well as frame rate is more consistent. There's not that much fluctuation compared to what we've had with the Ryzen 5 system. Generally, this is a much more pleasant, smoother experience. In Hellblade 2, we still cannot expect the 4080 Super to deliver good experience at native 4K resolution using the highest graphics quality preset. Because have a look at this. Yeah. Still below 60 FPS. So let's enable DLSS quality and take a look at the experience. In an average scenario, we're still getting well above 60 FPS. The Ryzen 5 7600X delivered a similar experience. We still get those fluctuations in GPU utilization. Sometimes it goes down to 96. It could be the case that the game optimization is a little bit lacking, or, I don't know, maybe the i7-14700KF is not powerful enough for the 4080 Super either. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you that at this moment because the i7 is the most powerful CPU I currently own. And in the worst case scenario, we're still experiencing drops to around 47 FPS. So in this particular game, the GPU matters a lot more than the CPU. However, this game is more of an outlier. There's not that many extremely GPU intensive games in 2024 so far. And I assume that there will be more coming this year as well as next year. I expect that most games will behave more like Horizon Forbidden West than Hellblade 2. In Cyberpunk 2077, using the Ultra Graphics preset, at 4K resolution using DLSS quality. Even the i7 delivers a similar experience in terms of just, your average FPS. I was actually surprised that in this game it appears that the GPU is actually the bottleneck in some cases. However, take a look at those frame time and frame rate graphs. They are much smoother than what we've seen with the Ryzen 5 7600X. And the experience as a result is much smoother, because if you see those frame time fluctuations, it is not good. You can actually feel it with your eyes, because the picture will not be as fluid. If we adjust the settings a little bit, let's select High Graphics preset and Native Resolution this time, using NVIDIA DLAA. You see, we are getting a similar experience to what we've had with DLSS quality on Ultra Graphics preset. That's why it makes sense to use DLSS quality. And now we're getting above 90 FPS. Interesting how we cannot use the highest graphics preset in an old game, because Cyberpunk is not new by any means at this point, although it did have that 2.0 improvement, some visual improvements, as well as features, but we're not even using ray tracing at this point. And if you do want to use ray tracing, then you will have to use a more aggressive upscaling. Let's try DLSS Performance and Ray Tracing Ultra preset. And there you go. Well above 60 FPS. Yeah, that is what you have to do even if you have the 4080 Super. You cannot use ray tracing at native 4K. No way. You have to use DLSS. And in this case, DLSS Performance. In conclusion, if you want your RTX 4080 Super to run smooth, then don't get a cheap CPU. Even though you can kind of play the games and still enjoy, but there are some problems. And if you are spending that much money on a GPU, you better make sure that you have a good enough CPU so that you don't have to deal with those issues. It doesn't even have to be that much more expensive than the Ryzen 5. You can get a Ryzen 7 or an i7 from Intel and enjoy your games properly. If you're interested in any of the products featured in this video, you can buy them on Amazon at the links in the description below. Don't forget to give this video a like if you found it helpful, let me know what you think in the comments below, and subscribe for more content like this if you haven't already. It was I, Vadim. Until next time.